Okay, so till now we have completed our course agenda, introduction, and what are the modules which we have to cover in this module. So here we let's start with our first module, and in the first module we have these are the sub modules which we have. First is submodule is Azure Active Directory, Hybrid Identity, Azure AD Identity Protection, Azure AD Privileged Identity Management, and Enterprise Governance. So we will go in the details in the further videos. So we will discuss one by one on each submodule. So let's start with our first submodule, which is Azure Active Directory. So here in Azure Active Directory, we have certain. Let's first talk about that Azure Active Directory. So as we know that in Azure Active Directory, we have a flat structure. So before discussing about that Azure Active Directory, I hope that everyone knows about that Active Directory. As we know that in Active Directory we have certain users, and in Azure Active Directory also we have certain users. So we can manage access based on the roles, and in Active Directory we have objects, and these objects are part of organizational unit. And again these organizational unit are part of our domain, and on domain we have 4s. So if I talk about that Active Directory, in Active Directory, which is on-premise Active Directory, so this is the structure we have in the Active Directory. But in Azure Active Directory we have flat structure. We are not having such structure where objects are connected to organizational unit, domain, and forest. And in Azure Active Directory we have, as I already told you, we have a flat structure of users, devices, groups, AUs, which is administrative units, and all those things are as a flat structure only. So we are not having this hierarchical structure in Azure AD. But both Azure Active Directory and Active Directory is helping us in managing identities and access of those identities. So let's suppose organization A is working and having a setup at the on-premise, but now this organization A want to shift to the cloud. They want to utilize the cloud services because this cloud is having a lot of application which they can access, which available. So at on-premise we have certain application also. So we have certain different authentication methods at the on-premise Active Directory, and we have different authentication method at the Azure Active Directory. But the major role is identity and access management. So I hope these two things are clear to all of you, that Active Directory is managing the identity and access at on-premise, and Azure Active Directory is managing identity and access at the cloud structure. So this is a basic understanding about that Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. Okay, so now please let's go into this slide. So these are the things which we will be discussing in this particular Azure Active Directory module. What are the features of Azure Active Directory, and what is the difference? Uh, so like what is the difference between Azure AD and Azure AD Domain Service? What are the roles we have in Azure AD? We have certain built-in roles, and what are the roles? Roles means we have collection of permissions. That this particular role is the role of instructor. So instructor is having certain permissions assigned. So this role is for security administrator. This role is for application administrator. So the requirement and the permissions which are related or for completing the task of managing the application, registering the application, we have combined and given a name as a application administrator. So we have certain built-in roles, plus we have a flexibility to create custom roles. Why we have this? Because every organization is having different roles and different permission requirements. So because of that, in Azure AD we have roles which we can design for our organization. We can use, we can utilize the built-in roles as well. And what all type of users we can have and manage with Azure AD, we will also trying to see, and understand about the groups and the requirement we have for groups, what benefits we will be getting when we are using the groups, and then we will be discussing about the administrative units, that what is the utilization of such units. Then technology which everybody is needing passwordless. Okay, so it is very difficult to remember the big and long password. So how a cloud is helping us in going completely passwordless, that we will be discussing in this